Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Med School Minutes podcast, where we discuss what it takes to attend and successfully complete a medical program. This show is brought to you by St. James School of Medicine. Here is your host, Kaushik Guha.
Welcome to another episode of Med School Minutes, where we talk about everything MD with the focus on the international students, specifically Caribbean students. Today we have a very interesting episode where we actually focus more on love. So interestingly, most of our students who come to our program actually find their significant others while they're in their program. It's almost like you come to get an MD and also find your soulmate. So we are going to talk to one very special couple about just that. Welcome, Dr. Drake. So before we, get into the details, would you mind giving us a brief introduction of who you are right now and what you do?
Sure. So my name's Emily Drake, as you mentioned, and I am a family doctor in northwestern Ontario, which is a rural town. And so family medicine up here means almost everything. So I do hospitalist, I work emerge, I work clinic, I do surg assist, I do ER backup, and I go to an Indigenous community.
Oh, okay. And where did you graduate from? Which campus?
I'm of St. James School of Medicine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you were from Anguilla, and I believe one of the very first batches in Anguilla.
Yeah, I was the very first class, January of 2010. I think there was 25 in our class to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to say that so the school has come a long way, and there were a lot of challenges and shortcomings, but as people graduate and they move on, they typically don't necessarily look back at the islands. Some of them, most of them actually don't even come back. But in your case, that's significantly different. What would you tell us why that's different for you?
Yeah, sure. So this is my Anguillan husband. This is Akeem, my husband. We met a couple months actually after I arrived in Anguilla. I had joined the muscle physiology research group with our professor at the time. And I actually started out working with the national soccer women's team. And then shortly after that, the track team heard of us and asked us to come over. So then we walked across the street to the grass track, and it was like day one that I met Akeem. And
all right. Well, Akeem, would you mind introducing yourself and giving us a little bit of a background about yourself?
All right. Well, my name is Akeem Mussington. Not really sure what else to say. I left the island in 2000. Was born and raised on the island. Left the island in 2012 to pursue my track and field career.
Okay.
And Emily moved to Chicago at the time, and I said, may as well just look into schools and try and make this work.
Okay.
I was offered a scholarship at Chicago State University for track and field, and then things went south because of the IAAF and whatever else. But since then, I've been focusing a lot on us and making sure, because I'm adaptable to just about any and everything. So
right.
She spent so many years preparing for this. I said, let's deal with you, and then I can come after. And right now we are on a platform where both of us are succeeding. But part of the reason on the island, I miss the island a lot. However, home is where your heart is.
Right. So now that you're in Canada, is Canada still home, or is Anguilla still?
Canada's home in the summer. In the winter, it is it is the last place on earth I would want to be. It's not. This winter has been brutal, and
right.
I've nah, it's not happy. I came here on the plane, and as soon as I stepped foot in Toronto and the wind hit me, my tan literally jumped off, hopped back on the plane, and back to the Caribbean it
it. That's hilarious. So, you have represented Anguilla in several international sports meets. Could
Yes.
you tell us a little bit about that? How does that work? Like, how important is sports as a part of Anguillan culture?
Well, growing up, we didn't have much. And my track and field career started at, I think I was about 11. And my first sports day, the coach came around different classes. Hey, looking for individuals to participate in track and field. I said, okay, well, because I was the fastest in my class, I was like, hey, Kim, you should go, you should go. So I end up going, and man, I got my butt whooped. But but it was a good thing because I got a taste of defeat, and I hated losing. So um, that year leading up to the next games, the next sports day, um, I remember running a lot of goats, a lot of chickens, because we had all the animals loose. So in order to catch them, we have to run them down. And I did it for so many months that it got to the point where I would actually outrun these goats. So it was, yeah, it was something. It was a big thing, and I went back that following year and I broke every single record in my age group.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
And you represented Anguilla in several international meets as well, right?
Yes. The 2010 Commonwealth Games in New Delhi.
Okay. Okay.
And the 2014 Commonwealth Games in Scotland.
Well, that's impressive in and of itself. When we met you, we kept feeling like I think you are the personification of Anguilla to a certain extent, and the way, the pride that you carry about being Anguillan, and your achievements with Anguilla, and not just that. Whenever we're in Anguilla, everyone seems to know you. So, you know, for lack of a better term, I would think that if anything, if there were a Mr. Anguilla, I think that would be you, in my
I was
opinion.
a vagabond. I was a troublemaker, man. Everyone knew me because I was a troublemaker. And when I got my balls together, really, people saw the change. I met my wife. I met my wife just when I had enough of shenanigans. And it's like, I'm gonna get your life together. And people saw the change, and now I am respected by just about everyone.
Well, and that's well earned too, for sure, because your achievements speak a lot. But other than your personal achievements, I think right now you are also a coach, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
and
one of my last. I'm proud of that. One of my guys went to the Olympics for swimming. One of the youngest in the Olympics, and now I'm training his sister. To follow him right there. So that's it's encouraging. Everyone that I coach, I mean, I love the idea of training individuals that have a big goal versus everyday individuals. Oh, I just want to lose a little bit of belly fat. It's like, that's a good goal. Don't take me wrong. But when you have so much knowledge about a specific something, you just don't want to set your bar low. You actually want to encourage the young athletes, especially.
Right. So as far as this coaching portion is concerned, I just knowing a little bit about a background of Dr. Drake, did you so Dr. Drake, moving to you, how can you tell us about your journey and how much of a support system do you really need to get through an MD program? Because an MD program is not easy, we know that. And you studied under, in a brand new school. A lot of the facilities we have today were not there, or weren't started up at that time because of, again, being a brand new school. How much of a support system is needed, and where did your support system really come from?
Yeah. Like you mentioned, there was the resources weren't the same, and it takes a lot of determination and hard work. And I'm sure most students know that, but I think it's different hearing about it than when you're actually in the trenches doing it. I'm really happy. I mean, obviously happy, but I don't think I realized how important it was to have someone on the island or a support system, just because we really were a team. And I would go to school in the morning, and having dinners ready, or like the little things that add up, right? Like laundry and keeping the place clean. We just kind of stuck together and encouraged me, and took breaks when we needed to take breaks, like finding a work-life balance and go to the beach, have fun. But then when it was time to work, it was time to work. And he gave me my space to do my thing, and it was a great support system. I mean, I had talked to my parents still quite a bit, and all my friends from back home. But yeah, it's a long journey, and you need your people.
Right. Mm-hmm. And can you tell us how you guys actually met?
Oh boy.
Hakeem tells a funnier, I think.
So I remember we were warming up on the track, and I ripped my quad, like maybe a week prior to meeting her for the first time. And I remember trying to do some sort of exercises to figure out, okay, where's my limit, and where can I take, basically, for the pain. And as I was bending over, I stood up, and I saw her walking towards the team. Mm-hmm. And I immediately felt in my heart that I was going to marry Emily. And I told my teammate, I said, I'm going to marry that woman. And my teammate looked at me like I'm on drugs. He said, right. So, and she came and she asked for Dr. Murphy, which he wasn't there that day. And she left and then came back the next day, actually. And I was technically the first patient, because I had less than 2% body fat, so every muscle was visible to touch as well as to see.
Okay.
And Dr. Murphy brought a table, laid me out on the table, and then start showing her and the other student the different muscle physiology and stuff. And then he got to my groin area, where the injury was. And so he started massaging, and it was not pleasant. I think his goal was to see how much pain he can inflict on me until I start yelping. And then the other medical student, she did it, and I could just about not feel anything. She just was gentle. And then Emily came, and it's like the three little bears, hard bed, soft bed, and then the perfect bed. Yeah, that was Emily at that point. That was Emily at that point, and I think after that moment is when I was like, no way I'm gonna let this woman go. And and we've been inseparable ever since.
Okay, but so the reason at the time when St. James started out, Emily, would you kind of elaborate why we actually had to use Hakeem as a specimen?
So we didn't. So because the school had just started, they took the policies through the government, etc., took quite a bit longer than they expected. So we didn't have any cadavers on the island that first semester. So between Hakeem and another muscular guy in class, we kind of used them as specimens and demonstrated muscles and identification of muscles and the function of them. And so if you flex a certain way, you saw the hypertrophy and how one would work and the functionality. So they were kind of our live labs.
That's amazing. So after that, so the island was just 2 years. after 2 years, Akeem kind of touched upon that. But you came to Chicago to do your rotations, and Akeem came with you. And can you tell us a little bit about that experience of you guys moving to Chicago, and Akeem, you in particular? That was your first taste of, the lovely weather that you enjoy in Canada
Yeah,
now, right?
man. It was Chicago is a different level because Chicago is always windy.
Yeah.
Especially downtown area. And even though the weather could be 10 degrees, it felt like minus 15 because the wind would just rip you apart, and we're right on the lake. But Emily left in 2011, and I would make a trip to visit her every 3 to 6 months. And it got to the point where we were like, okay, this waiting period time is just too long. I cannot wait 3 to 6 months to see you every time for like 2 weeks. No, I said, it's not acceptable. So I said, if we got to make this work, we got to make this work. And I moved to Chicago and saw snow for the first time. And I asked her, can I go and play in it? It was like, it's my first time seeing snow, So yeah, it wasn't as soft as
I think
it looked.
he thought it was going to be like fluffy and like powder. And I was like,
Right.
wet. You're going to get wet. And we were on the way to a track meet. I'm like, you can't get wet right now. He still to this day calls them, instead of snowflakes, he calls them snow petals.
Oh well.
Right.
Yeah. So I came here and I came there, and we're walking to the grocery store because she's showing me around the campus and whatever else, and now all these people are honking, and I'm like, and I just started waving, because Anguilla, when you honk, it's like, hello, hi, how you doing, whatever else. It's never like a bad greeting. And Emily's like, Akeem, they're saying, I was like, Emily, why? How these people know me? Like, I'm not from here. It's like, Akeem, they're saying, get out of the way. It's like, oh. So that was a wake up call on itself. And winter came, and I didn't like winter that much. For the first little bit, it was my first time, so it wasn't fun. But then you got used to it. You got used to hating your life during winter time, and that is where I miss being in Anguilla.
Right.
But it was a wake up call to leave. But it was a good call.
All right. And as far as your rotations, Dr. Drake, were concerned, how important was it to have, because you're not originally from Chicago.
No.
So Chicago is another brand new city. How helpful was it to have Akeem, your soulmate, with you during those times?
Oh, I mean, I think that to have someone like your partner in life with you during, any time where you're going through challenges, or you want to share the hard times and the good times. And obviously they were both in Chicago studying, and, even times when you go out and have fun. But it was certainly, I was very lucky to have that situation, for myself, to have someone, we lived at that time, we were living together in Chicago, and, it was nice, even from going to South Side Chicago wasn't, you don't always feel the safest, and,
Right.
have someone with me, and just, to share. That was, going through med school is a hard haul, right? It's hard work, and to be able to, have a support system right with you, was invaluable, really. And I'm fortunate that it worked out that way. The rotations, he speaks about winter a lot, because I think it was in my neurology rotation, we had to be there, start rounds at 5 a.m. So he'd go out about 3, well, I think I left around 4:30, so he'd go out and warm up the car for me about 4:30 in the morning. It was like sometimes it was like minus 40 Celsius with the wind chill, whatever that is in Fahrenheit. And
yeah,
that was
if it wasn't love, I mean, I don't know what it was, but I was like, man, how can people live in this? This is illegal.
Akeem, did you, at any point, did you think, what did I sign up for? Did that ever cross your mind?
No, it didn't cross my mind until I came to Kenora, actually.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
The minus 40 in Chicago is very unheard of. But up here, minus 50 is a norm.
Okay.
No, so it's like, anyone asked me, hey, so where do you live in Ontario? I said, I live Kenora. I said, Kenora, that's in Ontario. I said, yeah. I said, just picture yourself living as far north and having Santa Claus as your neighbor. That is where I live.
Mhm.
And he's like, I
Okay.
said, that's where we get all our gifts for us.
That's funny. So, in Ontario, do you guys actually get to see the aurora borealis?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? On a regular basis?
We haven't looked up.
No, there's
There's
certain times of the year that that it happens more often.
So you were mentioning that now that even though you've moved out of Anguilla, you keep going back on a regular basis, and obviously you have a more or planning a more permanent setup. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So we. Where to start with that? So we're in Kenora, and we're in Kenora by ourselves. There's no really family support, and if we want to go out on a date, we have to get a babysitter. Now, I don't mind paying for a babysitter, but at the same time, it's like anytime someone does you a favor or you ask someone for something regarding help with your kids, they request payment. So it's on one hand, that is fine, but at the same time, there's no family support system where we can just say, you know what, let's just drop you over by your parents' place, your grandparents' place, and you drive them crazy for a few hours, and then you come back to us, and you guys are tame in a way. So we said, well, on one hand, we have Anguilla, and then on the other hand, we have New Brunswick, where she's from, Woodstock, New Brunswick. Okay. It's like, well, if we were to move to New Brunswick, we have that family support, and we're good. But at the same time, I'm from Anguilla, and me obtaining land and a house, and just being able to be free, like that is me, you know. So I said, well, let's just hit two birds, one stone, and we were like, okay, well, we will talk about it. We'll talk about it, and we went down, and this was the only trip that I've been to the Caribbean where I was able to just be a tourist, you know, go to all the fancy restaurants. Spent a lot of time at the beach. I got sunburned for crying out loud.
Oh wow!
I know. I mean, that was like, okay, I'm in Canada too long. I need to reintroduce the sun to my skin. Come to the Caribbean more. So I said, well, let's go house shopping, and we didn't find a house, but we did find property. So we're currently dealing with owning that, and the next step for us is to decide if we're going to go back to New Brunswick or we're going to stay here, just to have a decision, a choice. It's good to have choices than none at all. So we're just going to figure out which one is the best choice for our family. But a house back on the island is definitely a must.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I think that's almost every person, irrespective of Anguillan or which nationality they always want a house in close proximity to the sea with nice temperate climate, and Anguilla is just that. So this is fantastic. So Emily, we're almost coming up to our time. I just wanted to ask you, do you have any advice? Because the Canadian match process is obviously a lot harder than I shouldn't say harder. I think it's just a lot more, let's call it restrictive, than the U.S. match process. And you were one of our first Anguillan students or students from Anguilla who matched into the Canadian residency. Do you have any advice for our students who match into or who are graduating now and are going through the match process in Canada as well as the United States?
Yeah, I mean, the Canadian system is, I actually think I had way more interviews in Canada than I did the States, because I think at the time, I don't know what it's like now, but the having to get a visa and all of that, I think they would have preferred it, and they should, as give a spot to an American in the States. So what I found to work so, and like kind of had all my ducks in a line in a row, I should say, is you have to do well in the NECOSCI, the Canadian. That is the kind of the golden ticket, if you will, to get a match, because it shows your clinical ability, and they really focus on clinical ability here. And so I did well, and I studied for a good solid month just practicing clinical exams. So I did well on that. And then I'm a so English, right? Like I'm a science person. And so my statement, like your personal statement you have to have, I had someone go over it and kind of jazz it up, if you will, to make it look really good and sound nice. And then the other thing, my references. I made sure I got my 12 weeks rotations, and then my references were really solid. So those three things I think were. And then the other really big thing I did was I did interview training. So in Canada, especially in Ontario, there's 6 medical schools, and there's 1 interview for all of the med schools to get residency. So I did interview training for several months. And it's interesting because my clinic just interviewed a whole bunch of nurse practitioners, and it's incredible. You can tell who prepared for their interview, and they get the job, get the offer. So interview, you can literally make or break your whole application.
How can you tell if they prepared or not? Like staged and what do you mean by that?
So there's always like a host of questions, just like in your clinical exam. There's only so many clinical scenarios you can give to someone in a practice exam, right? Like you have your back pain, you're going to have some like women's health thing, you're going to have maybe a pediatric case, and so you kind of know what the questions are. And so they would say, there's going to be, give us an example of a challenging time, or when you were in conflict with somebody and how did you resolve that, or something like that. You can look up interview questions, and I had an example for every single one, and I had it the way I had to explain myself and how to have a resolution to something, like have it properly planned. And so you're not just sitting there fumbling, because you can tell when someone has no idea what they're going to say, and then they say, can I come back to that? It just doesn't look good. It's have examples ready.
Right. So basically just practice over and over and over again.
Yeah, and have wide a range of answers ready to go for the questions they might ask.
Right. So, again, one thing I did want to mention to both of you is that a lot of our students who come into the program actually find their soulmates in the program. Either, students that they were rotating with, they might have been from another school. In some cases, it might even be somebody that they, were a resident or something like that. So, but your guys' story is so unique and so beautiful. And the way you guys support each other and complement each other. And I've, met you guys in person, and you guys are literally, when people say 2 peas in a pod, in my mind, that's the both of you. And it was such a pleasure having both of you on our show. Thank you so much for your times, Akeem and Dr. Drake. We really appreciate it. And, one thing I always tell our graduates is that anytime you come across a St. James student, please help them as much as you can, because, you've been through a lot. And if you can make the life of a St. James student a little easier, I think you should absolutely try and do it. And for you, Akeem, if you have any advice for Anguillans, and by default, you're kind of a St. James alum too.
Yeah.
So
it was definitely so.
If you have any advice for incoming students who come to Anguilla, what to expect? I mean, do you have anything that you would like to tell the students? Because a lot of students come in and say, this is not the USA. But in my opinion, I think Anguilla has so much to offer the person. Would you have any advice for a student who's coming from, say, New York or Chicago or Atlanta, which is like, these are the big hubs where our students come from when they come to Anguilla, as far as setting expectations and things like that is concerned?
For me, or you?
Yeah, no, for you, Akeem.
Oh, I find the biggest thing is if you go to Las Vegas, the first thing that you think about is, okay, let's go party, let's go gamble. But for those individuals that go there for work, they have that let's go party, let's go gamble in their pockets. Now they have to distinguish, okay, well, what is more important? Me going to gamble or me working? So it's the same thing with Anguilla. Anguilla, you have the freedom, you have the beaches, you have the nightlife, you have the food, you have everything for distraction. And you come there, and if you can succeed through all of that, just know that you did it in the right place. You had the right morals. You just knew what you wanted. No distractions.
Right. That's awesome. And obviously, Dr. Drake is a shining example of that. Well, you were a distraction, though, weren't you?
Yeah, I was a good distraction. You know, I would finish track and I was like, okay, I have to drop the kids home from school, from the track. I said, okay, guys.
The soccer kids, not our kids.
Don't be late. I gotta go home. I gotta prep stuff for my wife. I gotta make sure she eat so she don't have to get up from her study table. I have to go out and get breakfast, come back, make sure she's studying and she's eating. I said, do you need anything? I'm going out to work. Let me know if you need anything. And she will message me. I don't have this. Okay, I'm right there. So I took the work truck, give her stuff. So it was exciting for me because for the first time in my life, I was not just thinking about me, you know? That was my first experience of
in a relationship.
Giving, like actually giving and feeling very excited about it. And she was my first ever girlfriend, first Valentine, first woman that ever met my mom. It was It was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
To answer, like, I think for being a foreigner and coming to Anguilla, you just have to be open. Keep an open mind. It's not the States. It's not Canada. It's not, this is not going to have all the same amenities. And that's what it means to be in a different country. I've traveled quite a bit before I went to Anguilla. So to be in a different country wasn't a new thing for me. Like, I just previously lived in Nairobi. And so like I lived in California and I've lived around different places. So I knew going to a different country was going to be different. So for those students who've never traveled in or outside of the States or lived in another country, it is quite a change. It's an adjustment, but I think you just have to keep an open mind and like, they have oxtail and goat and they eat a lot of fish, right? It's not chicken burgers and McDonald's, and that's a good thing, right? Like, it's a good thing. I love that they don't have fast food.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good point.
Like, you have to stay open, keep an open mind and immerse yourself in the culture, learn about the culture, and you'll have a much better experience than saying, oh, they don't have this, they don't have that. Just
the only sad thing is that all the cadavers will have to be shipped in because not many people die. So just
the dead people.
Yeah, but the good thing is that since there's no fast food, only most people actually have 2% body fat only.
Yeah, so. Oh man, that was something else.
A healthier environment.
Yeah. Definitely. But thank you both so much. We really appreciate the time. And thank you so much for making the time. I know both of you are very, very busy, but we really appreciate it. And again, we're very grateful. And if anytime you're in Anguilla again, please drop by and say hi to Dr. Ilyu and the staff. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today again. And being a part of our show. If you want to see our other episodes, please follow us and our channels on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. And as always, please remember there is no shortcut to becoming an MD.
Thank you so much for tuning into our show. We hope you enjoyed another episode of Med School Minutes. If you like our content, please follow us and receive notification when a new show is posted. This podcast is brought to you by St. James School of Medicine. For a video version of this podcast, please check us out on sjsm.org/video.